What's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of Before the Whistle, presented by BRK Insurance Group. If your business is looking for the best in employee benefits, commercial property and casualty insurance, or retirement and 401k plan services, there's no one better suited to meet your challenges and build a plan centered around your needs than BRK Insurance Group. What's going on, y'all? Happy Friday. Welcome back here on Before the Whistle. Again, I'm your host, Maddy Hudak, and I am really looking forward to introducing my guest for today's show. If you guys have been kind of following along the show since its inception last May, my format was typically a solo episode and a guest episode once a week, but in the off season, it's been a little chaotic figuring out what I'm trying to cover at a certain point in time, being displaced at all these kind of showcases. But as I talked about on my last episode, really talking about the value of what all these Tulane guys heading into the draft bring to the table. And, despite not all of them ending up going to Indianapolis this weekend for the combine, or I guess it's next weekend, I can't do math. For some of those guys, it really doesn't matter. And one of those guys is defensive back Jarius Monroe, who has just been the most jovial person that I've ever come across in my life. And he's been that way since day one of getting to speak with him. But, he was just someone that seemed like the perfect guy to highlight in this instance, where he was someone that was the MVP of the Shrine Bowl. He told me he was also practice player of the week as well, and getting this offseason attention. And we've seen him step up in the most critical moments as a player at Tulane, but learning how he really grew into himself and how comfortable he is at this point in the process, and just the amount of peace that he has with what he can control, what he's able to do in front of him, and learning again about how he grew into being such a good leader and filling that void from the guys that had departed from the 2022 year, where that was Jarius Monroe's first season as a player coming over from Nichols that off season. And as we kind of talk about, he didn't really see his way onto the field until halfway through the season. And so he had about a half a year as a starter. He steps into this really huge role as a leader. It's something I got to see so often on the sidelines. And he's just the most, again, kind-spoken guy. And I didn't know he was a cat person. So all that and more on today's show with Jarius Monroe. So just for everyone listening, I know we've talked about you being down in Miami, but what has your process kind of been like since Tulane season ended?
I left a little early before the bowl game because of, I wasn't completely healthy. And, I knew this process was going to be really big for me to chase my dream. So I knew I had to be at least as close to 100% as I can get. So I just wanted to get a head start on that. So I head down here to Miami, started working with Bomberitos and their medical staff and, just their training. And I've gotten better than I've ever been as far as performing and, speed wise and just being healthy completely. So that's really what the process was about for me after my last game, the SMU game. I played my heart out that game and I really wanted to win it, but it didn't go our way, which was fine. Sometimes you go through things in life that lead to better opportunities, better things, So after that game, it was real tough for me, but, I took the time and I was kind of over it. And I fought a lot of, should I play in the game? Should I not? Should I play in the game? Should I not? And once I made the decision with my family, I knew it was time for me to instantly begin training.
Yeah, 100%. I just remember that really coming up about the Cotton Bowl last year. And I'm pretty sure if that game wasn't as late in the year as it was, and sometimes that can be a bad thing, but just goes to show how that December game, you get an injury and then you're really just screwed up for the rest of this process. Whereas you being able to have that time and get healthy, I just think is so important. But, you hear all about these training things that you guys all go to. And I think, Tulane fans are so used to seeing you guys play, you guys practice, and in your Tulane uniforms. And then everyone just kind of goes dark for these few months. And I know that you're all at training facilities, but at least with your position group for defensive back, I've talked to a few athletic trainers that have trained guys that the Saints have drafted. And a lot of it really just comes down to learning how to take that first step back in coverage. And so is it something that is that fundamental that you've been working on, or can you kind of share any of those techniques that you've been learning?
Definitely. We can talk about, the DB aspect of it, but I've always felt like I've been really good at that part of it. I put a lot of work in the off season after the Cotton Bowl, just learning things and picking up clues from everyone that I can soak information from, watching a lot of videos. I'm a very visual learner, and I'm also a good learner at repping things. Going back and forth with my coaches about things that I know I need to get better at, things that they see I need to get better at, and just trying to add all that to my game. And I feel like it panned out a lot because once I got here and I began to do the DB drills, I instantly was like, they were like, okay, you can do DB drills. Like, that's not a problem at all. Like, no matter what you're going through, you can do DB drills. Just because, it's something I've always practiced, always worked on. And I'm a very reactive person, reactive player. So I've always been good at the DB drilling part. The most important part to me is, just the testing, the speed test, those type of testing. That's the most important part to me, because I feel like I'm a really fast person, just not being able to fully show that, I guess, or people not being able to, understand my speed, was the question I kept getting a lot, talking to a lot of scouts. But it's not like they're saying I'm slow, which I'm not. Like, I obviously showing the game that I'm very fast. It's just that they don't know. So I think testing very well will be a big thing for me. So it's really just about the testing. And that's pretty much what I've been focused on.
Yeah, I mean, the 40, especially for those skill positions, wide receiver, defensive back, I think you're kind of talking about play speed where you can see it on film, you can see that you're a fast player, but having the actual numerical time to, stack up against that, that's kind of what I think you're getting at, where it is really hard to see exactly what someone's speed is unless you've just kind of been in those situations. But it's also super important to me to just be aware of those things throughout the draft process and have the ability to get that feedback from coaches. And I just feel like all of you guys that come out of Tulane are just, you seem so coachable and willing to work on yourself and better yourself. And how has that just kind of been your mentality throughout growing up playing football?
Nah, definitely. But obviously, when I got to Tulane, Coach Fritz, man, he kind of changed my mindset on everything. I've always been a sponge, always wanted to learn, but becoming a person that wants to learn but still lead was really hard for me. I didn't understand how I was going to do that. And this past year, with him allowing me to do that and just teaching me how to become that type of person, I think that really helped me. Not even just my game, but as a person. I learned a lot about sportsmanship and just being a great all-around football player. I've always been a great human, always, the joy of the room, wake up happy, bringing positivity every day. But on the football field, just always keeping that positivity and keeping those things in motion. I think that helped my game so much because it made me humble myself and focus on the little things so much. And yeah, I go out there and I'm very coachable. I'm ready to be a sponge, but I am also ready to lead whenever I'm called upon.
Yeah, I think I really like how you put that, learning how to learn and lead at the same time, because there was this huge void when all those leaders from the 22 season kind of departed. And, that was your first season over here at Tulane. And it was kind of one of those questions as storytellers on the broadcast was, who are those leaders going to be on the defensive side of the ball? Because you had Michael Pratt, you have Sincere Haynesworth coming back, but, without Nick Anderson, Dorian Williams, all the guys I could name off top of my hand, I felt like your position group specifically, and I know that it's kind of the emotions are the defensive back position, and live and die by getting burned and having a short-term memory and going on to the next play. And so I've always just found it interesting kind of sitting in on your guys' meetings. But what stuck out to me the most this season was that your guys' group was who I just felt like a lot of the defenders were looking to. And when you say learning how to learn and lead, are you talking about kind of just learning how to be a leader while leading at the same time?
Right. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I talked to Michael Pratt around fall camp time. Fall camp was coming to an end, and just talked about things about leading, and even at we went to media day. Just talking to him about leading, him and Sincere, and man, they gave me so many good tips on how to lead. But I understood that I've always been a person that people gravitate towards because of my energy, because I'm so positive. I've always been that person, so people are going to look to me, and they've been doing it since I got there, since I've been in college. So I was kind of already leading some people just by being me. And once I learned that, I can do the same thing, here and there, maybe step aside and talk to someone. I'm not the guy that's going to stand in front of the team and speak about this person in front of the whole team. I'm the type of guy to come to you personally and tell you, like, man, like, I believe in you. Like, I want you to know that I believe in you. I don't care how anyone feels about it. I believe in you, and I think that you can do this or you can do this. And I think that was my way of leading, because I was so positive, because I talked about God in front of these guys. I showed them that, I wear my faith and my passion on my sleeve. Like, once I was able to, show that I'm that person 2 years in a row, just being the same person consistently every day, it was easy to lead, because guys would gravitate towards that. Even our biggest leaders would gravitate towards that. So just trying to be a good guy, man. I think that's what it's all about. And I talked about that with Tajay before the Shrine Bowl. Like, I was kind of nervous, and he just told me, like, man, like, you're the type of guy they want in the building. Just a great person. That's all they're looking for, man. Just be yourself. And that kind of helped me out a lot going into that Shrine Bowl. But even this year, like, that's what I did. I just was being myself, man. Just trying to be a great human being, a great football player. I've always loved football, and just trying to give my passion to those guys and see, how much they can love football and how much they can extend their game.
Yeah, and I like I've talked to a lot of you guys who have all talked to Tajay, and I really like how you put that about just being yourself. And you guys all are such great character guys. I was watching on this kind of seminar thing that Nick Saban had done, and he described, being an and player or a but player. And the and
Hmm.
player is you have all the traits of being a great defensive back, and you're a leader, and you're a great person. Whereas the but is the exact opposite. They're a really great football player, but they have all these off-field issues. And so that's where I really think you guys just shine the most. And I think it's also important just to talk about too, that those kind of things, even though they look like you're just playing football, it's definitely a lot of pressure. And, you're playing, I'm assuming you guys have kind of truncated only so many coverages you guys can run. That's how the Senior Bowl kind of does it. So it's
Uh-huh.
not the normal way that a game is played, and not being with the guys that you've been used to in the secondary, with communication just being super important for your position group. How was that kind of getting over and communicating with that group of guys down at the Shrine Bowl?
Right. And like I said, people gravitate towards my energy. Even the coaches. Like, I came there every day and was just, very excited. Always had a joke. Always, making people smile. But when it's time to get serious in the meetings, we're really serious. We had great meetings. I asked great questions. I've always been that type of guy. Just showing that I'm a sponge, but also, allowing myself to enjoy the moment. Not being so tense, not being not myself. I would just be myself, man. And even the coach said one day, like, man, do you have that energy every day? Like, yeah, I'm just happy every day. Do you wake up happy every day? I'm like, yeah, like, you only get one life, man. Like, that's what it's about. You only get one of these. Like, and wherever you go in it, that's where you're going. Like, and you're gonna be there, and you have to live through that. Like, so I just try to make the best of the moment, and that's what I did there, man. And a lot of guys gravitated towards it. Uh, I found myself just having deep conversations with guys about, mental health and, just relationships with God, and just talking to guys, just sitting there, and we're just having these conversations, because we had a lot of downtime, but we'd just be sitting in the lobby and we're just talking, especially my position group. I found myself just, building kind of a family with them within those few days that we were down there. And that's what I want to bring to a program. I want to bring that type of positivity. I want to bring that camaraderie where everybody can come together and, have these conversations in the locker room near my locker. We can do that, and that's the type of guy I want to be. So that's my goal right now, just to continue to be myself. And I think at the Shrine Bowl I showed that a lot. Like, and when the coaches started to realize it, I knew, like, okay, I'm being myself again, because that's something that happened when I got to Tulane. Coaches would come up to me and be like, man, like channel that positive energy, keep channeling into the right directions. And it's like, man, like, I didn't even know I was that type of guy. At Nichols, that was just me. That's just me. Like, everybody just knew that's just me. They raised me basically when I was at Nichols. But when I got to Tulane, it was like, okay, this kid hasn't been here. Let's see how he is. And for them to see that, it was like, okay, wow. Like, and then the Shrine Bowl to see it's like, okay, wow. Like, that must just really be the type of person I am. Maybe I am the person that always brings positive energy, but I've always felt like I've been a very happy person. Just every day, I love life, man. It's just crazy. Like, I talk about my two cats, and like people are like, "What? You got cats?" Like, I don't see you as a cat person, but like, I'm that type of person. Like, I just love joy. I love love, and that's just what I'm about. And I brought that to the Shrine Bowl, and I think that would kind of help me propel my game, get practice player of the week and get MVP of the game. All those things came from me just being myself and just loving the game.
Yeah, I have a cat as well, so I'm with you on that one. But to be named practice player of the week and be the defensive MVP in the Shrine Bowl, I think that really says it all to me, because the practice, I think, for those showcases is just showing what type of teammate you are first and foremost. And you're doing these drills with again, a bunch of strangers. It's a little ugly. Nothing's really going to be perfect there, but how are you really interacting? Are you being a leader? And that sounds like, again, that you just relaxed into your natural abilities. And I think that really is where that value comes out in practice. But to also then be the defensive game MVP and really just kind of make the most out of the limited time in that game. I know that you talked afterwards about seeing something while you were in cover 3. And so you kind of fake that on the next. Does that just speak to your film study and how you kind of prepare? I know in your zone, you're looking more at the quarterback versus looking at the guy in front of you in that man coverage. But I just think back to the Cotton Bowl for you too, where it was kind of that same route that they went back to you. And yeah, and then he bit on it and you intercepted it. And just talk a little bit about what you see in those moments.
Just listening to the coaches. That's really what those moments are about. I can break down, how the quarterback played it, how that happened and how I made my decisions off of that. But also, our coach had been saying all week, our corners coach from Washington, Coach Garcia, still remember his name, great guy. Um, he kept telling us, like, okay, think with width, not depth. So that means think wider and not deep, so you can get into that sweet spot where you can still come down and make this play and not get out leveraged by the flat, but also sit into that window if they try to throw the corner out. So it was just me listening to the coaching and just trying to take all the coaching in. But it's crazy because you talk about the limited time. So before our first practice there, they told me that I was going to be playing safety. So I didn't play corner until day 3. And so I was at safety for the first 3 practices. Day 3 at corner, my first play at corner, I caught an interception in the red zone. And it just was like, wow, like, man, like, like God, like, but I just was like, learning that safety position. I was having so much fun back there, learning something new, seeing the field differently. Like, I felt like the game slowed down also. Like, I feel like I'm a really good safety now, just off those few days. Just like, it was so much fun. A lot of teams wanted to see it and they fell in love with it. I began talking to more teams, having more interviews because they see that I can be very versatile. And I've always been a communicator, even at corner. Like, that you've been at the practices when I'm there, calling out plays and, so I've always been a great communicator. So just showing that I can be that versatile, it was very interesting. But like you said, at the beginning of the game, at halftime, I went to my mom and was like, man, like I'm at safety and I'm kind of bored. Like, and I don't think I'm gonna get back in the game. Like we have 3 other safeties that got to play. So I'm talking to Coach Garcia. I'm just, I'm begging for a chance. I'm just like, man, Coach, like, you can find an opportunity, to slip me in there. I'm ready to play some corner too. And I got that opportunity on that drive and I made a play. And I just was, after that, I was like, I'm fine, Coach. If you want to take me out, that's fine.
Hey, and good for you again for advocating for yourself. I think that really goes a long way as well. And then to have that ability to go in and make the most of that play. But I think it's really interesting to me. And I think that your attitude towards playing safety and loving and enjoying it is just really a great one to have, because teams, I love defensive back as a position. So I always look at that when teams draft guys and whether or not they're looking at them as a defensive back or as, that true cornerback, as a safety, as a nickel guy. And sometimes a team might draft you thinking that they'll turn you into a safety, and then their cornerback goes down and now they kind of have you on their team. Right. So it just opens up, I think, that ability to endear yourself to teams. But did you feel like, because when I was learning the difference really between corner and safety, I think you have to have more of the physical capabilities at cornerback, but did you feel like your understanding of routes and everything like that was kind of bolstered by that time having to kind of hang back? Were you in a free safety role or were you more in the box also?
I was definitely at a free safety role. And
Okay.
yeah, I began to understand, if certain routes on the left side are this way, I may be getting these routes from the right side or vice versa. That comes with playing corner, you're gonna get this route if you get this route, so you have a high chance of getting certain routes if a player's going a certain way. You know when mesh is coming, especially at safety. You can see it. Like that's what I realized the most. I was like, okay, I can see when certain things are coming, like when certain plays, certain formations, when they line up a certain way, I know it's coming. And just trying to just bring my cornerback game to a different level when I'm at safety. But I feel like this year as a corner, I tackled very well, and I took a lot of pride in tackling, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with tackling, honestly, and I love tackling. And I think that's what kind of also like was like, okay, I know I can play this safety role because it's you versus me. You have to come through me to score a touchdown now. So I love tackling. So it was easy. That transition part, it was like, okay, I'm ready to hit whoever comes my way. So it was pretty much a smooth transition for me. But I think that when you're moving from corner to safety, it should be smooth. But they say that safety to corner would be harder, but I don't see it. Like I see that I can play any position on the defense, honestly. Wherever I'm needed, I can play it.
I feel you. I think it's just kind of thinking to, the cerebral versus the athletic, where, if you're a safety, that first step, I think, is slightly less important than, you're taking your first step in your back pedal. You're taking that extra step. That's what I was kind of talking with these trainers about, was guys that had switched from wide receiver to defensive back. It's seems similar, but it's doing everything backwards essentially, and
Right.
just learning how to eliminate one step is the difference between making it in the NFL and not. And so I think what you see, at least from my perspective, is safeties a lot of the time tend to kind of be a little slower as if they were playing safety their whole life. So to then move to cornerback, I think would be very difficult. But I think just your ability to be that versatile continues to just speak to, because there's going to be teams too where, they might play strong and free safety, and you might play a little bit in the box. Cause I was going to say, you guys,
Mhm.
as a defensive secondary, your ability to stop the run and your want to stop the run and want to tackle, that always stuck out to me so much. As much as we talk about Tulane's run defense of this last season, you guys definitely take a lot of credit for a lot of those tackles back there. And so who kind of instilled all of those fundamentals in you, and what helped you kind of take that step this last season?
This is a crazy story, and then Coach JJ and like my defensive coaches love to tell this story. When I got to Tulane, I was not a great tackler. But I had came from the FCS where I just had to run into guys. I wa-
Right.
I was really big then, I was just hitting guys, just running into them full speed. So when I got to the FBS at Tulane, I kind of was questioning myself, like, man, do I belong? Like after that Kansas State game, I just like, I didn't get that many snaps, but like, do I belong here? Am I supposed to be here? Fall camps, like spring, everything. I was great, confidence through the roof. But right before we started our first game, I had moved down the depth chart to the second because I was a starter at first, and I moved down to the second guy on the depth chart. And I'm just like, man, like did I just mess up my opportunity? Did I just ruin everything? And then going into that year until like week 4, I was a horrible tackler. There were guys that were just rolling over me, and it just was like, man. And I remember Coach Hamp saying, he said, if I see this again on film, you're gonna be sitting next to me for the rest of the year. This is 2 years ago now. So I went to practice every day, and I went to talk to the running backs. I went to talk to Shadi. I went to talk to all the guys who would be running the ball, and I just was letting them know, like, hey man, I'm gonna wrap you up and pick you up a little bit, but I don't mean nothing about it. I'm gonna put you right back down. And I did that for like 3 weeks. I'm doing it. I'm doing
Wow.
it. We went to play Memphis, and the guy caught like a hitch to receiver, and I picked him up and I slammed him on his back. And it just was like, man, like I put in a lot of work to become that great tackler to be able to do that. And I continued to do that for the rest of the game. I had like 8 tackles that game, and I was tackling guys amazing. And they was just like, man, that's how you tackle. Like that's what it is. I go to catch the game winning pick in the back of the end zone. And it just was a story from there. Like the next game, I start my first game versus Tulsa. I get 10 tackles I think I got. And it just was like, man, like, I'm just stacking on stacking on stacking. And it was like, okay, I belong here. And that was a confidence booster. And then, we go to the Cotton Bowl, we go to the championship and all those things. I get first team all conference, only starting 5 games, 4 games at the back end of the season. And it just was like, okay, so it's just not me. Like I can have this confidence because a lot of people see it now. And the interception versus Caleb Williams, that obviously boosts my confidence. So just building all that confidence, and then going into my senior year, I'm like, okay, if you want it, you have to go get it now. and I just dominated. I felt like I dominated every opponent I played this year. It was a few games where I just felt unstoppable. I felt like a superhero or something. And like I tell people all the time, like that's why I love football. It's the closest thing to being a superhero. But it was games this year where I just felt like, I get into this mode where there's no one that can stop me. There's nothing that can like I don't know how to explain it. There's nothing that can stop me from achieving what I want to achieve. And I love to win, and I want to win, and I love making my coaches happy. That's my goal. Like I love making my coach look at me like, man, you're a hell of a player. Like getting their approval and your teammates' approval is the best thing ever, man. So I just worked so hard for that, and once I begin to get that, it just build my confidence more and more and more. And every week, like you can even see it in my play, like the way I would play. It was just amazing. Like, it felt like an out of body experience sometimes, but I know what I'm doing. I'm focused. The game is moving so slow. Like even at the Shrine Bowl, the game was moving so slow for me. And I'm just excited to keep these things going and to continue to become a better player.
Yeah, I mean, the game slowing down, I think, is when it clicks for everyone. And so for you to feel that way in those huge moments, I think it just speaks to the importance of teammates and building that confidence and having the initiative yourself to go out and just kind of start picking up the running backs. It's not something I think a lot of people would think to do, but when I played
Right.
soccer, we kind of just chaotically would slide tackle people until we got to a certain age, and trying to suddenly learn how to drop your legs and do it in
Hmm.
a kind of controlled way. It was really weird at first, and it felt really weird when there was no person there. So actually physically picking up those guys and learning that wraparound, one of my questions I had written down was going to be about that Memphis game, because I remember your game ending interception and that you were just not scared of the moment at all. But you really just kind of told that story throughout your confidence in becoming a good tackler, and, wanting to have your teammates and coaches be proud of you. It just continues to seek out how great of guys you are. And I just hope that, you're taking the time to soak in this process and enjoy it, because you guys definitely deserve to have your moment in the spotlight.
Nah, definitely. I'm trying my best to enjoy this moment, but I also know that it's a lot of work that still has to be done. I feel like me and my agent talked about this. Like the cake is made. I just got to put the icing on top now.
I like
I
that.
got to finish icing it, and we got to cut it. And that's where we at right now. I just got to continue to build every day. Not even just as a football player, not even just in my training, but as a person. I want to go into these buildings ready for whatever moment is coming, whatever opportunity. Um, that's why I feel like in my interviews I'm so comfortable. It became a comfortable thing to me. I began to talk to these scouts like it was just a person that I just met, telling them about my life, telling them about how I feel, how strong I am about mental health, and even working with the Son of a Saint program, just telling them about those kids, and, my experiences with them, just being myself, honestly. And that's what it's about right now. Just keep continuing to grow as a person. I feel like that's what every day of my life from now on is going to be. Just me trying to be a better person than I was the day before, which is sometimes hard, because I've had really great days and then it'll feel like I've had a bad day, but there's ways to make a bad day great. And I always keep that with me. There's ways to make a bad day great. I just try to do that every day.
I really like that. Again, you're a ball of positivity for everyone around. Has it been something that has been a challenge, being not, in your home area and having a schedule that, it's still focusing on football every day, but in a very different way than doing everything that you were doing, getting ready for seasons and playing games against opponents? Has that been a fun challenge, or has it been kind of just a little bit of a mental switch for you?
Definitely a mix of both. I knew that I had the Shrine Bowl coming, so I knew I was gonna get one more opportunity to play football again, and I was really excited for that. And I was able to, do what me and God talked about for that, and I'm really thankful of that. So I had that focus, but now switching back to just training and focusing on the testing. I do have like this mental headspace that I'm in, that when I'm like, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to be locked in here, I have to hit these numbers, I have to, so just chopping it down like that. But I'm really excited to see what I do. I know that I'm a person who runs off adrenaline and hype and positivity. So if I just keep doing that every day, keep going to practice with the same mindset, I think I'll be pretty much fine. But yeah, it's totally different from training to get ready for football. Like my guys at Tulane are doing right now. It's a totally different experience that I'm going through. Training like a track star almost. So just trying to learn different ways to keep myself going, keep myself motivated, which is not very hard for me. Because I just love this sport and I know this is a part of it. But like they say, you only got to do this once.
Exactly. And just to kind of end things, I know you have so much going on, but would you say that you have kind of learned anything new about yourself throughout this process, or what's kind of been your biggest takeaway on life after the college football season has ended?
Um, I miss football a lot, and I
Yeah,
miss my teammates, and I miss my cats. And I'm also very fast. That's something I didn't know.
that's incredible. Well, Jabo, as always, it's truly been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing you're gonna be participating in Tulane's Pro Day.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to covering you guys for one last time at Yeoman in that case.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Awesome. It's easy to hear a promo in the middle of a podcast and think, of course they like the product, they're paid to. Well, if you know me at all, then you know two things. One, I'm truthful, almost to a fault. And two, if I were in it for the money, well, then I'd certainly be doing something else. So believe me when I say that I love Blue Oak Barbecue and I am much overdue for a trip back there to have some of the food, the drinks, the people, the location. Yes, all of that. Blue Oak Barbecue has a great selection of your favorites, from the smoker, fantastic sides, and I continue to say awesome bar specials each and every week. Go check them out. Blue Oak Barbecue, 9100 North Carrollton Avenue here in New Orleans, or visit them online at blueoakbarbecue.com. And I do have those February specials for you guys, even though we are in a short month here. Let's make the most of it. And I know that my episode is coming out later this week, so have these in mind for your next slate week here at Blue Oak Barbecue. But Mondays, got the classic red beans and rice. Tuesdays, brisket barbacoa tacos. Thank you for that tongue twister. Wednesdays is the master burger. Thursdays, bloke potato, which I'm as curious about as y'all are. And Fridays, you have a fried catfish banh mi. I will get y'all those weekend specials on Friday's episode. All right, y'all. Again, that was cornerback, defensive back, wherever he ends up on the field, Jarius Monroe. And it just continues to stick out to me how much of a pleasure it is and a joy for me to talk with these guys, how kind they really are, and just how above and beyond great people. And that energy just emanates from them, even across a screen in a different state via Zoom. When I've really never interviewed Jarius as a player before. I'm around them all the time and I talk to them so often, but this has just been such a great opportunity for me to start kind of getting my feet wet, getting to know these guys in that type of interview setting. But just how candid he was about his whole process really growing into his own at Tulane and the initiatives that he took. I just keep thinking about the fact that he walked over to our running backs and we were like, let me just pick you up in the air for a couple weeks. And one of, like I said, my first questions to him was going to be about that Memphis interception, but I always just kind of let the conversation take itself where it goes. And he kind of answered that for me, where I remembered that game-ending interception, and it stuck out to me that he came in halfway through the game because Jaden Kennedy had torn his ACL in that Memphis homecoming game. Tulane was up something like 35-0 at halftime, and was to the point where people started leaving. And then Memphis made a very credible comeback, and I believe it was a one-score game, if not them having the opportunity to win it with that touchdown. But Jarius, I just remember stepping up in that critical moment, making that interception, but learning that that confidence in that moment really derived from being able to just throw a guy down and tackle him with the technique that he had kind of self-taught himself. That was just, again, really fascinating to me. And when I think a lot about the psychology behind learning and all these types of things, I think a lot of coaching is just teaching, and a lot of them will be very kind of candid about that, where I talk about this all the time, but if you can't translate what you're trying to say in a way that guys are going to understand, then it doesn't matter how good of a scheme you've come up with. But you also have to learn that every single guy is their own version of a sponge. And there is certainly a spectrum. And I think there are guys that, are more to the median, that are just kind of general. And I think a visual learner like Jarius, it's safe to say that, it's a pretty standard type of learning process, but it just goes to show again how unique every single guy is, how they learn. And then again, that's why I keep saying why the right coach, why the right situation makes such a huge difference for a lot of these guys. But a lot of the time with defensive backs, it just kind of feels like they are really their own identity, their own position group on a team. And the more that you can do to get yourself onto a football field, the better. And that's something that really stuck out to me in that episode, in that conversation with Jarius, was the fact that he was so open and enjoyed playing safety. And, it is 100% boring in comparison to having that kind of man coverage lockdown, man versus man right in front of you, physicality type thing. But all the ball skills that Jarius has, all of the understanding of those routes and when to look at the quarterback versus paying attention to how the routes are declaring. And I remember that being a huge point of emphasis in that Cotton Bowl game, where the way that the route trees were these guys were coming off was not exactly what they'd seen on film, and was extremely hard to defend because it was just, there were so many different directions. And then you have the Heisman Trophy winner throwing the football. And if you remember that game, it still continues to be insane that it ended up 46-45 Tulane, but you could already start to kind of feel the defense just really not have any answers for the pass coverage and shutting down Caleb Williams, where they didn't really need a running game at all. And that moment where Jarius Monroe intercepted the ball, I want to say Tulane scored after that. And it was one of those moments that you look back on the game where everything is a butterfly effect, but it's really impossible to say what really would be different if you take out one thing or another. But if you ask me, that was the really first jolt of energy that was infused onto Tulane's side since the kind of the opening snap. And that all went down to Jarius Monroe and his film study. And just watching him grow so much as a player this year, we didn't even kind of get to this, but there was a stretch where he was kind of getting bored, just like he was at safety, because they weren't targeting him because he was so good at what he was doing. And again, that only gives you so many opportunities to show off your speed when you're just completely able to blanket and shut down these guys to the point where quarterbacks aren't even looking your way. But the ECU stretch, I just recall Jarius Monroe going over to the offensive meeting bench, and it was another game where things were just not really going great. And ECU was a really tough competitor, despite being a 2-win team at that point in time. It reminded me a lot of the way Tulane finished out their year 2-10. Just do not underestimate this opponent type thing. But I recalled that it was really quiet over there for a little bit. And right before halftime, Jarius Monroe goes over to the offense and he just says, "Get ready for the 2-minute drill." And I'm thinking, okay. And I talked about this in my sideline spiel video that I had posted on Twitter a few months back. But a lot of the time I'll hear these things on the sideline. I'll keep them in mind, wait for that to see whether or not that plays out or not, because it's an insight that it's good leadership displayed by Jarius Monroe. It's an even better insight if you then give the context that he ended up, I believe, breaking up 2 passes. He was definitely targeted on 3rd and 4th down in that, if not 2nd and 3rd, and they didn't go for it. But he literally decided that drive, and they were throwing to him in coverage really for the first time in a long time. And even though he might have had some rust here and there, the confidence that gave them for them to make, it was a field goal to take the lead, I want to say, going into halftime. You just can go back to a lot of moments for these wins by Tulane and point to a lot of critical moments that could have been turning points because of the play of Jarius Monroe and the leadership of that group as a whole. I spent the most of my time on the sideline this season when I was paying attention to the defensive meetings with the defensive backs, just because there were oftentimes games where things would not be going well at first, and then they'd really get it together by the end. I remember the South Alabama game, and sometimes just settling is super important. And it goes to show just how many things are required to be good at football and play a position before we're even getting to talking about Jarius's comments about whether or not he has that kind of 40 time, where it just takes so much before the snap, before the whistle. It's really the point, again, of the entirety of this show here. And no better example of someone that is just, again, all of that work is put in starting years back, starting in ways that he self-taught himself. And I just am looking forward again to that one last opportunity to cover these guys and see them really truly be themselves at Yeoman for that last memory for Pro Day. I think really no matter what happens for these guys, their time at Tulane changed their life. And having that final memory to be back with their teammates after all being displaced and in these kind of bizarre showcases that I also appreciated his candidness in talking about that. And it reminded me again, just a lot of talking with Tajay Spears last year, where it's easier said than done to go to these types of things and be yourself while you're so focused on trying to be good at your job, which in this case, being football, where then you have to worry about also having a personality. And this is a wild thing to say. It's not remotely comparable, but I just think about growing on this podcast and being myself and learning the skill of doing a podcast. Before I would have to do all this prep, I would have to write out a lot more, and just really learning how to be comfortable speaking and being myself came secondary because I was focused on learning that skill of being a podcaster. And so his comments about learning how to learn and lead at the same time, I think to be able to take in things and display those traits while you're still kind of learning them day by day, and be so open about the fact that you don't know everything and that you are appreciating that your coaches put that trust in you to be a leader where you might not feel like you're necessarily there yet. And it just speaks to the identity, the culture of Tulane. It's hits different when you hear it from these guys, when you heard it from those guys last year, when you hear it from Jarius this year, just the camaraderie and the true brotherhood that they really have with each other. It just comes out in spades, and they will be an asset in any locker room. But I know that Jarius will put that extra bit of sunshine on any team that he ends up on.